Hey everybody, welcome back to Dental Unfiltered. I'm Matt Brown, here with my new awesome or my normal awesome co-host, Dr. Andrew Vallo. I would say leading into this episode, he is the greatest startup doc in history, without a doubt. He's had too many home runs in a row. If he had a batting average in professional baseball, I think he'd beat everybody that's ever played the game as far as hitting home runs in dental practices. Um, recently I was on a Facebook group and somebody called him a charlatan and said his numbers weren't real. And I'll tell you, his numbers are as real as real could be. I see his dental intel, I see his practice management software, and I can tell you, being in the Army, one of our 7 values is integrity. It's something I take seriously. And I will tell you, every number that he gives is concrete and real. And one we're going to talk about today that is super exciting to me. We've talked about, like, I think $2 million month. He hit another milestone that is amazing. And it's really cool because it's a number that most practices strive to have for a month. And Andrew did it in a day. And you're all thinking right now, like, what is it? And like, is it 20? Is it 80? Is it 100 grand? No. Andrew Vallo hit $165,000 in one day of collections. Not production, not adjusted production, collections. So, Andrew, this day is happening. Okay. I, being a competitive guy, and I think you are too, a lot of times if I see the possibility of this, like, I don't know, like, did you know that day was gonna possibly be the 165 day? Like, were you watching everything every hour and watching it build? Or did you just wake up the next morning and check everything and realize, oh crap, we did a 165 day yesterday?
Yeah. Thanks for that intro, Matt. This will be a fun one, guys. I've got a lot to kind of break down about that day and some strategies and a whole lot more. But I guess to answer your first question there, Matt, I used to, like, when I first got out of the chair and I was full-time out of the chair, I was CEO. At that point we had 4 offices and then 5, 6, 7, 8. I would kind of throughout the day track how the offices are doing. So I had a grasp on where we're at. I might send some text out, to our COO or, some OMs or TCs and be like, hey guys, like, collections are kind of low. Like, let's see what we can do here. Let's try to step it up. But I realized a couple things. I realized, one, that, it was creating like a giant time suck for me. So it was like every time I'd finish a task or be in the middle of a task and I'd be like, all right, let's see how the offices are doing. And it was disrupting my workflow, and it's something that I should be able to delegate. Like, I should be able to have other people that can kind of keep tabs on how things are going. So that was one thing. The other thing is, I mean, honestly, it was adding to my mental strain, because you think about it, you're just constantly worrying about where things are at, checking things, all that stuff. So, like, even if I wasn't actively checking, I might be in the middle of trying to get some like deep work done, and I'd just be thinking about, like, crap, like, we're behind today on collections. And, even though the group is doing very well, like, I am a pretty competitive person. I've got my goals set. And I hate to see when I feel like we're falling behind on things. So it was dragging me down from a, like, mental energy standpoint. So more recently, and I would say more recently, like within the last month or two, I kind of made it a point to stop actively checking the offices during the days. I do once in a while, maybe check an office or something, but it's not like the routine that it used to be. And typically what I do is I wait for my COO to report. So usually at the end of a day or the very beginning of the next day, he'll send me the report with what our total collections were for the day before across all the 10 offices. And so, like, for this day, it was interesting. So this was the Monday after Christmas. So this was Monday, December 29th. We had some short weeks around the holidays, like many people do, although we were open. And, that was kind of the thing that I thought about, was like, wow, it's crazy that a lot of offices just closed down for 2 full weeks. And I get it. Like, I get it. You want time with the family. You want to give your team time with the family, all that stuff. However, if you shut down for 2 full weeks, you're basically cutting your December, revenue opportunity in half. I mean, you're basically shutting down on half the month, more or less. Another thing to consider is, because a lot of offices are shut down, you get a lot more emergencies. I mean, there were offices where there were days where we had schedules that looked pretty light, and it didn't look like they were going to do a whole lot. And all of a sudden, 7, 8 emergencies showed up on the schedule, and they're doing same day endo, crown, same day implants. Um, and they ended up turning out like nice days. So, I mean, those are some of the best days to be open in terms of emergencies. And then also end of year insurance benefits. So you think about timing, all these people that, procrastinate, drag their feet, all of a sudden they're waking up and they're realizing like, oh crap, now I really do only have 1 week to use my insurance benefits. I want to get in and get as much done as possible. So we had a lot of those patients, that were reaching out as well. So all in all, across 10 offices, we had some pretty nice schedules during those weeks. Now, what were our schedules? So Christmas this year was on a Thursday, as was New Year's Day. So Christmas week, most of our offices were open Monday and Tuesday. And then we had like 1 or 2 offices open Christmas Eve for like a half day. So most were open 2 days, and then we were closed Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The next week, I would say most of our offices were open Monday, Tuesday, and then half day Wednesday for New Year's Eve. And then there were some that were closed completely on New Year's Eve. So call it maybe 4.5 days on average that our offices were open during those 2 weeks. Our team still got 5-day weekends, basically both those weekends. So they still had it was that nice balance. They still had plenty of time with family. People still traveled. We had some team members, go away that we got coverage for. We had some doctors go away that we got coverage for. So like the nice thing is we were still able to accommodate holidays and travel and family time and all that stuff. However, those 4.5 days were huge, especially when you factor in one of those days, we collected $165,000. So our goal for the month of, I guess our goals lately, we kind of have tiered goals. We have like a bare minimum we want to hit and next tier and all that stuff. But more or less, like I would say like kind of the median goal, like what we're really shooting for at least every single month is 1.85 million as of late. And those are going up for 2026. And I'll talk about that probably on another episode. But that's kind of like the median goal where it's like, okay, this is like a solid month for us. This is a nice profitable month for us. And during November and December where you had less working, we had about 18 to 19 working days, give or take per month, November, December, whereas normally we have 21 to 22 working days per month. So we had to be more efficient. And I talked about this on another podcast. We had to be more efficient on each day that we were open. So not only did we hit our $1.85 million kind of like solid tier goal, we actually hit our upper tier goal of $2 million, which shocked me. I could not believe it at the end of the month when we ran the final numbers and realized we had just barely crossed. This was our second $2 million month ever. So in December, with Christmas and New Year's, with shortened weeks and short number of days, and obviously there's still, despite the insurance stuff and everything else and emergencies, there's a lot of people that don't want to do big surgeries over the holidays. So, I mean, it's tougher to get those implant surgeries and all that stuff scheduled over those holiday weeks. Despite all of those obstacles, my team, and I put a lot of, I don't want to say pressure, but I have high expectations. And, I check in with them on a, daily to weekly basis and where we're at and where we're going and, what we need to do to hit our goals. So I did. I have high expectations. Not only did they come through, but they exceeded my expectations for that shortened month. So that was incredible. Long-winded answer. When did I find out we had that incredible day? It was at the end of the day. So everything was done. Manny had kind of texted. He hadn't even run the final numbers yet, but he was basically just like, wow, like this office killed it. This office killed it. One of our offices that day to help us hit 165,000, one of our offices collected $59,000. So obviously that went a long way towards our huge day there.
Yeah, but it's still 165. Like
yeah.
dentists all the time are like, well, I had that one big case though. It wasn't really, no. The opportunity level and the output was 165.
Well, but that was my other point here was that like, people listening may say like, okay, well, Dr. Vallo has 10 offices. Okay, nine were open that day. So 9 of our 10 were open. Yes. Okay. So 9 offices, 165. But here's the thing. Even if you only had one office, we had one office collect $59,000 that day. So if I can have an office collect $59,000 in one day, there's no reason that your office can't collect $59,000 in one day, as long as you're offering those expanded services. So, that is our model now. We've got our implant only offices, which only offer those full arch implant services. And we've got our general offices, which all offer those full arch implant services as well. So if you're a doc who's not offering those type of services, I would give two recommendations. Either one, if you're interested and you really want to do it, go take the courses, spend the money. That what does it cost? Maybe $30,000, give or take, to get the training and kind of start getting. I mean, I guess extra costs for buying a CBCT and some other stuff, but $30,000 to $50,000 on average, if you're not buying a brand new CBCT with everything in, you could literally do that in one day. And that's what they did. They pre-booked a whole bunch of surgeries and collected in full for some of them. And that's how we got $59,000 in a single day. So that's my inspiration to you. The other option, if you're not that interested in doing that yourself, go find a super GP who is. And I'll tell you what, they're out there. People don't believe it. But again, it comes down to how hard are you looking? So, the average dentist looking for a job, they may make an Indeed posting and it's like a cookie cutter job posting. We do an Indeed posting, but like my Indeed posting, because we actually are, we're hiring right now. We're expanding the group. We're adding a couple more offices. We're adding some more doctors, some of our implant offices as things are growing. So my Indeed ad that I put up recently, it said 600,000 to 900,000 plus. And that is absolutely accurate. If you are a super GP and you've got that skill set, especially as we're trying to add IV sedation in, if you've got that skill set, you can easily make that as an associate. But like most dentists, they're not posting things like that in their job postings. They're not attracting the right type of docs who are looking for. You've got these docs that are super clinical focused, but they're not that interested in the business side, or they don't want the strain, or they want to come in, do the surgeries, go home to their family, not worry about stuff. They're out there. I guarantee it, because we found a dozen of them at least. And my partner Sasha has been talking with them. We're trying to figure out whose timelines fit and goals align and all that good stuff. But I also do Dr. Nacho's Dentist Job Connect. I also post in Nachos about it. I also posted in the Full Arch Masters Facebook group, which was awesome. Actually, we got a lot of applicants from that Full Arch Masters group where docs are really focused on full arch workflow. We actually have two different docs that are looking to sell their practice, move out of state, to come join our group and work with us because they're sick of handling all of the headaches that come with ownership, and they're not seeing enough consults to do enough of the full arch work that they love to do. And we figured out that formula. So again, I guys, I went on a big spiel there, but my point is, no matter what your office looks like, you can do this too. You just have to take the right mindset about it. So,
I did the average, and your average was 18,300 across 9. Okay. You know how many docs just strive to have a $10,000 day?
Yeah.
And have a $15,000 day? You guys averaged 18.3 across all the 9. Now listen, one was 59. So you start bringing out, there's some $8,000 days, there's some $12,000 days in there. But even that, I think, there's docs that are going to be listening and they're going to like extract the 59,000. Like, oh, without that one case, that day would have been X. I think the thing to remember is the consistency of your numbers. Like I see Andrew's numbers. It's not up and down. It's kind of like an arch that goes up, and the consistency, I think, for you comes from the delegation and systems. I think one thing where you end up hitting these numbers is a lot of people delegate, but they don't trust. You delegate and trust. You give them the chance to fail or be successful. You don't look over their shoulder the entire time and make them second guess everything. Because I know people in your organization, like Manny, your brother, and your dad. Like, I know people in your organization, and you give them the freedom to try to figure things out and come up with fresh ideas. If you micromanaged them and looked over their shoulder, they would be in fear of doing that. And I think, I always talk about this on the podcast. Maybe this is a little bit off subject. Every metric is a measurement of a human behavior. And if Andrew's hitting all of these numbers consistently, the human behavior that is happening is very trusting delegation and very excited people who have a chance to lead, and you allow them to lead and figure out how they need to leave and guiding them. I think accountability happens two ways. One way is I'm going to keep you accountable, and it's like a iron fist. The other way is, hey, you did this really well. You did 80% to perfect. Let's find the 20% and make you more perfect, and maybe you find 5% more. My opinion is, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this. If you have an employee that is 75% what your dream of an employee is, you're winning. Like that's great, right? Like that's a good employee. Like, we have I think 80 employees over at work now or something like that. And we don't really have any problem children, really. Everyone does a really good job. I think because Ryan does a really good job of delegation and investment in the team. But I think like we have to understand like that 165 number. I think docs focus purely on like clinical for that. And I think they have to understand the human train is probably a bigger contributor.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, right now, one of my goals is to continue to pull so I've already over 2025 as CEO, I offloaded a lot of things off my plate. I sat down intentionally and I was like, and I think we talked about this with the bulletproof guys, but I was like, what gives me energy? What takes energy away? And all the things that I felt like took energy away that I felt like someone else could do as well or better than me, or at least very close to as well as me, I offloaded that stuff. I delegated it to COO or other team members on our team. I didn't just hand it to them and say, "Here, it's yours." Like I trained them on it. We worked together. We audited. We make sure that they were doing it the way that we wanted. But then I started letting go, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I still work a lot. I still work more than I'd like to, probably more than my wife would like me to. But now I'm working on different things. So now I'm able to focus on more big picture stuff and less small picture stuff. And I mean that change I think has been one of the big catalysts to our incredible growth. So you like, yes, we did open a number of new startups last year. But to be fair, those are ground zero startups. I mean, we built the patient base from zero to the ground up. We've got our final numbers, at least as far as we don't have EBITDA finalized. I've got ballparks and stuff, and I can give you guys a ballpark because I'm always transparent. But our final revenue number was $18.92 million, just shy of 19 million for 2025. We added almost exactly $10 million to top line revenue in 1 year. So we were 8.9 million in 2024. So we went from 8.9 to 18.92 in 1 year, which was a testament to the incredible people that we have on our team. And I think people that are internally motivated. Like, yes, I do still feel like as CEO, like I am a motivating force for our teams, but I found the right people who don't need that on a daily basis and who can motivate others within our group so that I don't have to be the one always motivating people. And we set growth goals and incentives and things that align, with where we're at. And, I think we've got a bunch of people now that are rowing in the same direction that really believe we're building something special here. And really believe in our doctors and really believe that we're like, that's the cool thing. It's not just like, okay, like we're going to do more revenue, but like the dentistry is, subpar. Like they truly believe we are providing the highest quality of these, especially these surgeries and cosmetic cases. And I mean, Invisalign, I mean, there are a few docs in America at this point in time that have more Invisalign experience than I do. I haven't been chairside for over a year, but I still help our associates with planning out these cases. I still oversee, I still plan some of the more difficult cases myself. I'm finishing up my own Invisalign, which I'm excited to finally get this over with. But that's the cool thing is I don't think it would work without that. I don't think our executive team, our CSO, our treatment coordinators, or I don't think that they would be able to do what they do if they didn't truly believe that our doctors are some of the best in the country, providing the best services to our patients. So
Back to being the greatest startup doc in history. 10 practices doing 19 million. You're averaging 1.9 million a practice. A lot of startups in their first year is like the thing that gets toted out there is be $1 million startup in your first year. I think you show there's a possibility of something way greater than that in a startup. I think that um, if you shoot for $1 million in a startup in the first year, you're going to hit 800, 700. I think you have to shoot for 1.2, 1.5 to hit a million. And you're averaging 1.9. And your startups, some of them are not very mature, right? Like some of them are very young. And I think a startup is anything like under like 17 months of age. I think
I was
anything
gonna
over that,
say, man, a lot of our
you
the
know,
majority of our offices right now, over
have to be in that,
half,
they have to be
over
in that
half,
range.
over half of our 10 offices are a year, just about a year or less. So we opened office number 5 in December of 2024. It is now the beginning of January 2026. So I mean, like 6 out of our 10 offices are about a year or less age. But like, here's the other thing too: is like our startups, they're ramping up faster too than when we first started. So I would say when I first started, like average first year startup collections was like 1.2 to 1.4, for those first handful. Now we're seeing a lot of them 1.5 to 1.8. So we've kind of upped that threshold for the average startup for collections. And I think we're going to have our first $3 million startup. So we've only had one startup do over 2 million in their first year. They actually did 2.5. That was our Riverview implant office. And honestly, at that time, I didn't think we'd ever beat it. I thought this was the unicorn practice that, hey, all of our practices do well, but like this was an outlier. Our Fort Myers practice, first 5 months open, they have collected $1.4 million. So they are currently
Oh,
on
you were
pace.
tracking for 3 million.
Yes, they are currently on pace for actually a little bit over $3 million. December was their best month yet. That was the office that had $59,000 a day. They collected just about $400,000 in their 5th month open in the month of December. So, I mean, you do the math. That's what if they average that 4.8 million. That was probably a little bit of an outlier month, and at least in the current trajectory. But still, I think they could maybe hit 3.5, 3.6, something like that. Maybe even 3.75 if momentum keeps up. And the crazy thing is they only had 5 ops, 1 hygienist, 1 doctor. And I think in 2026 we're going to start turbo loading. I think we actually already added a couple chairs very recently. I think we're going to add a second hygienist here soon. They may be ready for their second doctor within the first 12 months, which normally that comes 12 to 18 months into a startup. But I think that with their pace, they probably are going to, Dr. Skozin's going to need some help down there. So, yeah. Oh, I did mention I was going to say EBITDA. So we don't have it completely finalized. We got ballpark. We're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.4, 4.5 million for EBITDA. Margin somewhere in the range of like 23 to 24%. So considering that we had just opened 6 brand new startups, it was a very, very solid, profitable year. And I expect that number to climb. 2026, we're planning to add. We've already got 2 practices that we're working on that should open sometime around March. So actually fairly quickly here. And then I don't have any more in the pipeline yet, but my plan is to add probably at least 1 or 2 more offices in the later part of the year. So we're looking at probably about 3 to 4. I think 6 was a little bit too much without adding a whole bunch of infrastructure here. But I think if we add 3 to 4 and our current offices continue the growth trends, we could be looking at EBITDA margins probably 28%. I think we're probably targeting upper 20s for EBITDA margin this year. So
Right now, there's some defeatist doc listening to this who's saying, "Oh, well, big deal. They were implant and arch practices that did those numbers." If you're a super GP and you have that skill set, there's no difference. You can do the same modalities of treatment. Like just because you're labeled implant practices doesn't mean, like, if you're a super GP in a GP practice and you choose to do those modalities of treatment and you build a system for it, just because it's labeled an implant practice doesn't mean you can't do those numbers. Like I can hear a doc right now going, "Oh, big deal," but they're implant practices. Listen, if that doc could also do bread and butter and that was a super GP practice, I have super GP practices that do those numbers just
that in
because
Fort
they have the
Myers,
skill set.
Fort Myers is not a strictly implant
Oh,
practice.
it's not. Okay.
No. Fort Myers is a general practice. We happen to do a lot of implants there, but again,
Okay.
we
So
have a
that's the exact
hygienist.
scenario.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cool.
And honestly, Matt, that's our new model going forward. So our goal is not to add any strict implant offices. The only reason I would do it is if a great opportunity comes up in the right demographic that we're not in, that makes sense for us to expand to, that is less ops. If you're talking about a 4 to 5 op practice, I don't want to do a general practice with hygiene there. That would be an implant only practice. As long as I can find, I'd like 7 to 8 minimum, but even 6 I can make work. As long as I can find at least 6 ops, we're going to do some kind of general practice where we bring in a super GP who can focus on doing a lot of the full arch implant work, but we also have a hygiene system. We do some restorative dentistry and some cosmetic cases and all that good stuff too. So,
Hey guys, thank you for joining us today. Once again, click like, subscribe, follow, share, and in the description below is the link to the Dental Unfiltered study club. And we periodically announce webinars there. You can ask questions. We release podcast episodes and shorts there. It's a great resource. Please, if you want to join it, the link is below. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Have a great day.